Hey there, true believers. Oh, Stanley, don't sue me. I love you. Anyway, welcome to the newest episode of The Bearded Gamer Show. And as always, I'm your host, The Bearded Gamer. Getting all long and awesome right now, right? Chris Arnone. Okay, let's talk comic books this time around, starting off with the pull list. So as always, Wednesday is New Comic Book Day, which means that it's the day to go find your local comic book store, talk to your local comic book guru, and pick up these books and, of course, some other great books that are coming out this week. You know, just talk to your guru, buy some comics. You know, it's an industry that always needs your support and your help. Yeah, the movies do great, but the print struggles a bit. So go out and buy these fantastic books. First recommendation, 30 Days of Night, 10 Bloody Years Treasury Edition. Now, it has been 10 years since the original 30 Days of Night miniseries, and this really put IDW on the map, and it put the creative team on the map. And of course, this turned out to be, you know, later on a movie that was actually pretty good, and it's about vampires above the Arctic Circle, where once the sun drops, it stays down for 30 straight days, which is, you know, freaking scary. But they're putting this whole thing together for just $10, this Treasury Edition. You get the entire miniseries, one, you know, bound once, Treasury Edition for $10. That's just really, really cool. So go check that one out. Next up is Green Lantern Corps number 9. Now, I'm a huge Green Lantern fan. Now, of all the Green Lanterns, John Stewart has always been the straight shooter, at least, you know, amongst the human Green Lanterns. He's the architect. You know, he's not the one that goes, you know, shoots off his mouth. He's not the one that boldly charges in without thinking. He's not the one with all the emo dying girlfriends. He's just the straight shooter. He's the one that's usually on the, you know, Justice League. Well, now he's on trial for apparently murdering another Green Lantern, and the Alpha Lanterns are after him. So, you know, I'm very intrigued by this storyline of, you know, what sort of, you know, crossed wires are involved with making them think that he killed another Green Lantern. Or did he? That's the big question. So definitely looking forward to that title. Next recommendation, another DC Comics, is Justice League number 9. Now, I'm finally starting to get into Justice League now that they've done the reboot. The reboot definitely threw me off with DC, their whole 52 reboot. A little odd, but I'm starting to finally get back into these titles again. And I'll tell you what, it's going to be a new storyline called A Villain's Journey. Now, they're going to be introducing, so they say, a new villain into the fold, a big nemesis for the entire team. I'm wondering, are they bringing back, you know, one of the other classic villains like Mongol or Starro or Eclipso or somebody like this? Or will it be a brand new creation? I'm really curious to see what they're bringing in. But yeah, I'm definitely starting to get into this series, starting to get into the characters they've got on this team. Still not a fan of Superman not having his underoos on the outside, but what can you do, right? It's Jim Lee designed it. How do you argue with the guy? So that's go pick up that one. Okay, last one. Let's get back to, you know, the indie roots that I seem to love so much. This is Pilot Season Hardcore number 1. Now, this is from the dazzling minds, and I say dazzling minds, of both Robert Kirkman, the guy behind Walking Dead, and Mark Silvestri, the guy behind Witchblade. Crazy, right? Now, the whole idea is, you know, how do you make an assassin that no one ever sees, no one knows who it is? Well, simply put, these assassins fire what they call a hardcore into someone's neck, and then they can take over their body like it's a puppet. So it could be a child, a neighbor, your barber, anyone could be the assassin. Well, be controlled by the assassin. And what happens when amongst this group of, you know, very dedicated mysterious assassins, one of their own turns on them? So that's the premise behind Hardcore in this new Pilot Season book coming out. I just think it's a really cool idea. I'm really digging on it. It's kind of got a sort of Wanted flair to it, but this whole sci-fi thing too. I'm definitely digging it. Go check that one out. Pick it up. As always, Wednesday, New Comic Book Day. Go to your local comic book store. Buy these things in print. They're fantastic. Or if needs be, get the digital versions too. It still helps the industry, still helps those great artists and writers make their living doing what they love and making this brilliant art form that is the American comic book. Love that stuff. All right, let's move on to some nerd TV. Now, several months back, I told you guys about CW putting out a pilot for Arrow, which is based loosely on Green Arrow. Well, the cool news is they are now picking it up. So they've taken that pilot, they're going to run with it, and they're going to make at least a first season. And you can see an image here of the new costume, the new design. I'm going to give you a little lowdown on it because it's not just straight up Green Arrow from the comics. It's also not the same one that was featured in Smallville. The idea is that Oliver Queen goes missing after a shipwreck and reappears 5 years later. Now, he's still the billionaire philanthropist, playboy kind of guy, kind of like, you know, Batman or Iron Man, that's that whole alter ego. But he's trying to reconnect with his past and with these people he loves, but he's also building this persona of Arrow, this hero by night kind of guy. And it's kind of more of a Batman take on Arrow because he's still putting on this front of this billionaire playboy, you know, just the kind of a dick with way too much money. That's what he's exuding to the public. But then, you know, privately, he's also trying to reconnect with his loved ones, especially his ex-girlfriend. And of course, at night, he dons on this costume, grabs a bow and arrow, and tries to fight injustices. So here's hoping, and granted it's CW, so it's going to be pretty emo and a pretty young cast, but here's hoping it turns out to be really, really cool, sort of like the first 3 seasons of Smallville. Fingers crossed, right? Okay, let's finish up this episode with a controller confessional. Now, just last week, I was talking about the Avengers movie and how awesome it was, but I was also talking about the characters I really want to see in the next Avengers movies. But then it got me to thinking about things that are going to totally screw up that awesome list I made, and it was brought to my attention partly by one of my commenters. Thank you for that one. And that is that movies can be really screwed up by the meta. In other words, the things that are outside of the script, you know, and the characters that can totally screw a movie up. Case in point, and we're going to keep it on superhero comic book movies, X-Men 3, The Last Stand. Now, this one got screwed up by all sorts of external factors. Okay, first one is Bryan Singer left to go make Superman Returns, which was a crap-tastic movie. Oh, it was so bad. But more than that, James Marsden, who played Cyclops, followed him over to go and be in Superman Returns. So we get Cyclops at like the very beginning of the movie, and then he dies. Seriously, right? Okay, next up, Halle Berry apparently got her hands on a comic book and figured out that Storm is kind of a team leader in a lot of situations and thought that she needed to have a bigger role. Lady, you had the worst line in the first movie. You know, the whole, what does lightning do to a toad? Same thing it does to everything else. Seriously, that's terrible. Not her fault, I know. But, really? And finally, the last thing that just pushed it over the edge is Alan Cummings, who played Nightcrawler, said he just didn't want to do that makeup anymore. Now, he was awesome as Nightcrawler. Such a great character, always been a great character. Cummings did it really, really well. And come on, Rebecca Romijn was in that stuff head to toe for 3 straight movies, and you couldn't do just the hands and the face for more than one. That's just kind of sad. I mean, seriously. So all that, you know, contributed to a not-so-great script and all that stuff, to just kind of a poor movie, a really bad finish to that trilogy. So coming back to Avengers, what in the meta can really screw this up? Well, as far as the characters I was talking about, it seemed to have slipped my mind that there are studios other than Disney that own rights to some of these Marvel characters. First up is Sony Pictures. Now, they actually own the rights to Ghost Rider, which to that one I say, keep it, I don't care. But they also own Spider-Man. Yeah, they have the rights to keep making Spider-Man movies. They did the first 3, now they're working on Amazing Spider-Man as well. So if they wanted to try and get Spider-Man into the Avengers, there's some big contractual problems, or they have to pay just a ton of money to try and get at least temporary rights to use him in the Avengers, let alone all the contractual problems with the actors that they're using. Now this brings me up to another one, which is Fox. Now Fox owns several properties under the Marvel brand as well. Now they own X-Men, okay, so they've got the X-Men movies, including X-Men First Class, but included in that, they've got the ownership behind Wolverine. So the Wolverine Origins, and of course I said Wolverine is one of those characters I really wanted to see, but it's just not going to happen unless they can work out that contract. But it's more, and of course by Wolverine they also have Deadpool. Not that I was necessarily saying we need to see him in the next movie, but there's Deadpool. But that's not just that. They also own Fantastic Four. They've got Silver Surfer because of Fantastic Four. They've got Daredevil, and they've got Elektra. So they got this whole lineup. And that's not the only ones. You got others like New Line Cinema and Lionsgate have their hands in other Marvel properties as well. Basically, before they formed Marvel Studios, they were, trying to fish all their different options for movies and got all these contracts signed. Of course, now they made Marvel Studios. Now they're completely underneath Disney. And Disney, of course, would probably like to keep everything in-house, but they still have to honor these contracts. You buy a company, you buy their contracts, you buy their commitments. So that all just goes hand in hand. So, but maybe there's always a chance. I know with a lot of these contracts, if they stop making movies for a while, so like maybe if they don't make another Fantastic Four for so many years, the rights can revert back to Marvel. So maybe they can reboot that and try to do it better. And I think a lot of people would love to see a Civil War movie, with the Captain America against Iron Man and all the different factions that split off, including X-Men and the Fantastic Four. But also, I tell you, when you get into movies, there's a limit to how many characters you can shove into one movie and still have it make sense in 2.5 hours. So, can't get them all quite in there. But so there's my controller confession, a little sort of food for thought, and makes you go, can't get them all, can't win them all. But I tell you what, Avengers was still a great movie. Looking forward to seeing what Marvel's going to do in the future with all their great properties. All right, that does it for comics this week. We'll see you guys next time.